What's up, queens? Welcome to the Female Dating Strategy Podcast, the meanest female-only podcast on the internet. I'm Ro.
And I'm Savannah. And back by very unpopular demand, it is Lara.
Hi, everyone.
Shade.
The Queen has entered the building.
I mean, there was a reason why she's back, which we'll get into later on in the episode, once we get to the juicier meat of the episode.
We need her very special expertise on a special subject.
Yoruba demons. Anyway, and so today's episode, we'll be talking about Love is Blind After the Altar.
And everything that's happened since then.
I honestly feel like the social media has been more popping than the actual show in terms of tea and revelations about the cast members.
Yeah, so I found out from sleuthing that After the Altar was actually filmed before the reunion. So a lot of
This makes no sense.
Exactly. So that kind of makes a lot of the juicy details that happened off of the show. They didn't make it onto the show because a lot of the stuff was discovered after the reunion. So I don't know why they would film after the reunion when they filmed the reunion afterwards. But yeah, so there's a lot of details about what happened with Brennan and SK, which we'll get into. And I think in general, it's a good, since this fallout that's happened, it's good for us to, flex our hindsight muscles and see if there were things we should have paid more attention to with watching the show. Granted, this is reality TV show, so they cut it and show it a certain way and script it a certain way so that they look a certain way. But I feel like there might have been some tells between Brennan and SK, and the rest of the cast members that maybe we could have picked up on that would have predicted the fallout.
Yeah. Okay, so should we take Brennan and Alexa first, the so-called success story of the season? Because there's always one couple who seems to be a success story, and then you just find out the rats in the cupboard after the fact. So obviously the bigger one, I guess, if you're not fully aware, was that shortly after the main series aired, a police report came out on the internet that alleged that Brennan had basically been arrested for domestic violence about 3 months before the show.
Oh, that recently?
Yeah, it was 3 months before the show, which was concerning because even though there wasn't a charge leveled, but I do think, due to basic safeguarding, that should have really taken him out of the running, personally.
Yeah, and what it's described as is that he gets in an argument with this girl. I guess they were out at a bar. As a woman he was allegedly dating, grabs her by the arm and shoves her into the wall. So it's pretty serious.
Yeah, and I think it was her mum who filed the report. So that came about. And then obviously there was that whole drama around Brennan, trying to fit into Alexa's life. Her family are, very rich, quite Jewish, and, how they were going to navigate that as well. Then there was the axis that Brennan was almost like Alexa's attack dog, where if she disliked somebody, he would just be yapping at their heels as well. And that really annoyed me during the reunion a lot as well. Just basically turning the screw on people like Cole when it's dude, you've been arrested for DV. And at this point, you knew you've been arrested for DV.
It was such a pointless beef. Right, I'm going to be annoyed at you because my wife doesn't like you, because her friend doesn't like you. It's just how old are you?
Yeah. I get that vibe from Brennan. He just seems like Alexa's attack dog. And it's he didn't seem to have any outward issue with any of the cast members until Alexa has an issue.
It's made it seem like he was mad because he felt like Cole was bullying Zena for her weight. And that's the narrative that Zena was spinning, that Cole was allegedly bullying her for her weight.
Oh, with the cutie scene.
There's a scene in After the Altar where Brennan pulls Cole aside and it basically kind of explains his beef with him. Oh, we don't like the way you treated Zena and bullying her for her weight and everything. And Cole is just I don't know what you're talking about. Cole seems really clueless. So I think, I don't know, man. It's on one hand, I'm I love when my significant other backs me up, even when I'm dead ass wrong. But at the same time, I think in light of the DV charges, it's a little bit concerning. Is he just a hothead, a person who will, just turn on a dime, without a certain level head to assess the situation. that's what's concerning to me.
And I thought it was like quite unnecessary, given that there were enough people who didn't like Cole, and for the same reason. And I wished that perhaps that maybe Brennan could have been that one person who was trying to perhaps focus on some of the things that Cole did to try and be a better person or try to bridge the gap, as opposed to like make it more uncomfortable for Cole to be around in that space. Because after the altar, Alexa's party, Cole was just by himself drinking like a lot of the time, and I'm just sort of bumbling around trying to find a tribe, and no one was really letting him in, and it was just very odd.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about Cole that like pisses them off so much. Like, I mean, he says things that are like, I want to like address this because some people thought like I was defending him and like Bartise. I'm like kind of low key defending myself at their same age. Like I had diarrhea of the mouth like that, and I didn't even like, I was not really trying to hurt people's feelings, like legit. So like when I see that, I sometimes feel like, yeah, he's immature. He doesn't seem like he takes himself seriously. So he seems like he's surprised when other people are like actually hurt by the things he says, right? He doesn't get it.
He's sort of just like, I was saying to Lara before the call, like he reminds me of like one of those like, I mean, the American equivalent would be like a jock, but those guys in sports societies at university who go out, get raved, and when they're friends, they're an absolute dick, but when they're on their own, they're actually quite a nice person, or they're more bearable. That's what Cole sort of reminds me of. And I think that it seems like he lacked tact and diplomacy, but I didn't get the impression that he was doing it out of malice, like some of the other men on the series were. Like they were behaving maliciously towards their partner. I didn't get that impression from him.
It's not the same as like what SK apparently did to Raven.
And what Bartise was saying to Nancy about other women, and the way Matt was behaving towards Colleen. Like, and I suppose it's an indictment on the show when Cole seems to be, you know, taking into account Brennan's, you know, DV arrest, seems to be the least problematic on the show. That just goes to show just how low value the series is, to be honest. So, yeah. And I did feel like at the reunion, Cole got an awful, awful edit. It was totally unfair just how they somehow managed to turn the screw entirely on him, when, again, there were men there who were more problematic. Bartise, there was Matt. I mean, SK we didn't know at the time, but even SK, to his defense, he was the only one who didn't seem to join in on the pylon, and he was trying to console Cole. He was the only one that did that, but the rest just piled in.
SK slightly tried to come across as a bit like holier than thou, like, oh, look at me, I'm Jesus Christ. Like, and it was all, you know, all was revealed, wasn't it, at the end?
I also think that they didn't go in as hard on the other guys because the women held back, except for either they didn't air it or the women were not nearly as like vindictive as like Zenab was. Like Zenab was legitimately scorched earth pissed at Cole.
Yeah, she was hurt.
Which I have to say, like 80% of it is like her insecurity issues that like, it's Cole's a dick and he said things that were horrible, but at the same time, it's like, I'm like, you met this guy like 8 weeks ago. He shouldn't be able to like destroy your self-esteem. Like the verbiage she used, like this guy basically like turned her entire life upside down. I'm like, there's no way. You have not known this person long enough for that to be the case. It's like she didn't take any ownership of like her own feelings and like working on her own feelings, you know?
It was great to hear that she was in therapy, but it was almost like everything she'd experienced in her life before the show, Cole somehow, through his like dance way of approaching things and how it, you know, and how like stupidly he talks, managed to just embody all of the things that she might have ever felt that have been said in malice and have said to attack her by everyone in her life previously before that. And it was like, right, I'm taking this out on you.
No, totally. And I actually think that would be the same thing with like Alexa. Like, I feel like they've been rejected by guys like Cole before. And it's just like that kind of nastiness built up. I mean, he's gone on record and said like he was very attracted to Zenab and like he never had a problem with her weight per se. Like, but again, like drinking and then diarrhea of the mouth, you know?
I didn't get the issue with the weight. I didn't understand it.
I didn't know Zenab had an issue with her weight. Like, she's even, okay, she's not as slim as Colleen, but she's still very, 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 very slim. Like, I don't know what the issue with her weight even was.
What I didn't understand was the cutie situation, because from what the edit at the end suggested, it suggested that Eve, like Cole, even went as far as saying, are you sure that's going to be enough? Do you want to eat more? Like, it wasn't, I didn't get the impression, I understand that this was edited, but I didn't get the impression that Cole was trying to say, you eat too much, that's why you're the size you are. Like, in the way that, like, Zainab was portraying that comment, I thought it was just taken wildly out of context.
No, I mean, no, for sure. Because, like, even her mother, when they did the house visit to visit Zainab's stepmother, like, she even admitted that sometimes Zainab goes off the rails when she feels rejected, like, subtly and nicely, because Cole's family didn't want to meet Zainab. And then, like, Zainab's stepmom was like, you know, stuff like that. She'll take it personally. She'll be like, oh, do they not want to meet me because I'm brown, and et cetera. Like, she has, like, you know, she takes little bits of rejection because her self-esteem is quite fragile, and then, like, extrapolates it to extremes, right? And then that causes her to, like, hype herself up so much that she, like, lashes out and gets angry. It's not that Cole's not a douchebag, and some people felt like we were trying to go, like, easy on him, but it's just like what Zainab's issue is not, like, Cole is just one of many guys that's gonna bring that out if she doesn't work on herself for that. And it's more like to hopefully help her go through her trauma. Because, like, when I think of, like, cruel, sadistic, horrible partners, Cole is, like, light work. So I'm like, you can't handle Cole. And to be honest, like, there's way worse guys out there. So, like, he's just kind of a dummy with, like, occasionally foot and mouth syndrome, but he's not, like, he's not manipulative like SK, or, like, malicious, like, and vindictive like Brennan.
I'm Baptiste.
Baptiste is manipulative too, yeah, or vindictive or malicious like Brennan. So I'm like, I mean, just look at comparatively, like, the other guys got off easy considering, like, how much worse they are as people than Cole is. And you're looking at Cole getting the worst of it because Zainab reacted the worst, even though, like, I don't think Cole was nearly as bad as some of the other guys, clearly, right?
No, but I definitely feel he shouldn't have been on the show. Like, he didn't seem to get the premise of it. Like, love is blind. So commenting on looks and what you dated before, like, why would you come out with that stuff? And also, who the hell, like, who are you trying to date here? He couldn't make out whether he wanted to date, like, prom queen, like, someone new, or his mum. Like, it was just really, like, why are you here? I just didn't get it from Cole.
This is why I could never do reality TV show, because I know I would have one drink and be telling, like, everything. Because I feel like when I watch that, I'm like, they were drinking at the pool all day, and he said, like, he said he thought Colleen was hot. And I'm like, I probably would have said that shit, like, if I thought someone else was hot. Not even to be mean, but just to be like, oh, I think you're hot. Like, but I don't know. It's hard because, like, I'm not defending him. I'm low-key defending myself and my behavior through these guys. I feel like it's totally understandable if you've been drinking and, like, you know, you're in a vacation spot to, like, say your true feelings, which I guess clearly are hurtful. It's hurtful to people sometimes. Yeah.
So moving on, we basically segued from Brennan and Alexa quite nicely to Colin Zainab. So Baptiste and Nancy. I have to say though, Nancy's brother was like the star of the show for me. He reminded me of Steven when he was like, you brought us out to miss a fucking tap. I loved her brothers. Like, they were the stars of the show for me. Because I would be pissed. Like, imagine
waste my motherfucking time.
With the, like, you know, that squint of, I want to kill you, but I can't.
And then when he kept saying, like, I told you I was so, but it's like, and he kept saying, I didn't want to be right. I was like, but you're secretly glad that you're right.
I didn't want to be right. I didn't want to be right.
But you're secretly glad that you're right.
Yeah. I knew this guy wasn't no good.
Oh, Baptiste and Nancy. Oh my gosh, where do we even, like, oh gosh, that was another mess as well.
So I'm defending Nancy for, like, telling her family to go away, because as a person who has, like, very overbearing family like that, they make every situation worse. So there are some people that were criticizing Nancy for being, like, dismissive of her family to, like, talk to Baptiste. But, like, if you have a family like Nancy's, which I have, experience has taught you that if you don't get them out of the situation, they'll escalate it way beyond, like, what's healthy for everyone there.
But I do feel like Nancy, like, she, like, I totally understand that. And I could see how, like, I can see that they could be overbearing. But what we saw, like, in the After the Altar was actually the family, especially the mother was quite overbearing. I was quite surprised that the brother was quite calm, like, was a lot calmer than he was at the wedding. And I think it's because Baptiste wasn't there and he genuinely cares for his sister. But Nancy is clearly someone who gets taken for a mug. Because, okay, this guy just leaves you at the altar in front of your family, like, and it was so unnecessary. And then you continue to be friends with him. Why?
Baptiste doesn't want to be a bad guy. I think what happens, because what she says is that basically he wanted to still be friends and, like, maybe rekindle things, but then she saw on like his Instagram or something, like him hanging out with other girls or whatever. And that's like what prompted her to be like, what the heck? It's over. So I'm thinking like he thought like, oh, let's just be friends and didn't think anything of it. Like as far as that it might be emotionally hurtful for someone who is really in love with you to see you just like outliving your life after you were allegedly engaged to be married. So I think Nancy was right to put the boundary and should have put the boundary in place because like, I don't think she realized like how disingenuous Bartise was being, right? Because he just doesn't want to be a bad guy. So I feel like he just sort of, he's trying to let her down, but like not
be the bad guy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then she's like keeping hope alive in a way that she shouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah. And then just that whole like almost fixation on Raven was just really uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah, that was wild. Like, because Raven was like, I think Raven saw him was like, like, and he was so...
And even like Raven was like, at one point, love is like, he's like, oh, you know, he was like, yeah, you know, me and you walking into a club, like people will be looking at us, and she was like, love is blind. Like that's like reminding him why they were there. Like, and there was just no, given that when he was talking, like Raven was doing push-ups because he was so boring, or she found him so boring. And he's still blabbing on at her at the pool when they actually see each other. And she's still like, we've got nothing to talk about. I don't know what I'd have to say to you. Like, how do you not get that?
So I've heard on the new show Perfect Match, and I haven't watched it yet, that he's like similarly shallow.
He's on there.
Yeah, he's on the new...
Really?
Yeah, so like...
Oh no!
On the new Netflix show, I know. So like they put like the craziest people from the past seasons on this new show. So they have Shane from season 2 and Bartise from...
Oh no!
Yeah, I know. Bug-eyed Gary Busey guy.
That's like the waste bin.
And Bartise from the last season, and that like same thing where he just seems like he's massively insecure, so like wants to be part of the cool crowd. And then when you look at his friend group, like his friend groups are so clearly nerds that it's like, oh, okay, so he's kind of like, he's not really a hot boy, but like he wants to be a hot boy, so he's trying to like build his like hot boy group, you know? But it's like, it's not working because he's so like thirsty to be, you know, part of the cool crowd. And like, it's turning off people, especially someone like Raven, who's maybe like used to being judged by her looks to a certain extent and wanted to get away from that whole thing so she could have a genuine connection. Like for someone like Bartise to be like, we should go to the bar together and look hot. She's like, what the fuck are we talking about? Like that's like the opposite of what I want in my life right now, you know? But for him, like, he's like, he wants to get like the attention that Raven gets. Like he wants that validation. He's in that validation phase that he can't like connect with people because he's trying to get validation from certain people based on how they look. And that's not going to change anytime soon. And definitely not with Nancy. So hopefully he'll mature after it. Let's hopefully. But like Nancy, she's not going to feed his ego in that way.
Yeah, which is a shame, but yeah.
I dated guys like Bartise, so...
What? Sorry?
Just putting that out there. So I dated guys like Bartise. So just putting that. Like, guys, you're like... Because you know what happens? And like, similar to SK, like, then they start nitpicking everything you are and everything you do. Because like, it's all about their image at that point.
Yeah. Moving on to Matt and Colleen. Oh my gosh. Like, Matt was just... I felt like Colleen was shrinking in front of our eyes as the episodes went on due to her relationship with Matt. It was quite terrifying to watch that. And I'm surprised that Matt wasn't called out more for his temper and the way he treated Colleen at the reunion, especially when it came out that they're still not living together, which is probably, for Colleen's sake, probably a good thing, even though they did get married in the end.
So they're not living together.
No, they're not living together.
I think the relationship on Colleen's end is done, but they're waiting probably until they're not contractually obligated to stay married anymore to divorce. Because I don't know, when I saw their interactions, she's standing up for herself and she's putting boundaries, but it doesn't look like she's in love with him. It's looked like she's tolerating him. He looks clueless.
Or perhaps like the rose-colored glasses have come off and she's realised, actually, this guy's an incel and I need to get out because, yeah, from the get-go, their relationship was just... Yeah, Matt's got issues. Serious issues.
So I read that if they stay married for a year, the show pays for the divorce. So like for the season 2
Really?
couples, they all got divorced at the 1 year mark. Yep. So like they're not technically contractually obligated not to get divorced, but if they want to get paid for it, yeah, or something like that. If they want to get paid for it, then they have to stay married for like a certain amount of time. So I'm not surprised that they don't live together because I don't think Colleen's like serious about actually staying married to Matt. And like you said, the rose-colored glasses have come off, and she was super like thirsty and desperate. Like if I remember, because like she kept trying to fall in love with these guys and get them to like choose her, and she got chose by like a crazy person, or at least a deeply emotionally damaged man and entitled man.
Yeah, I get played. I remember when it was I need to get played. I was like, Matt, who is playing you, really?
What's scary to me, though, is like she's going to try to leave. And like, see, he doesn't seem like he's getting that she's pulling away.
Oh, of course not. Absolutely not.
That's what's scary to me. So I'm like, I'm scared for her when she actually does try to leave, because he's going to feel blindsided.
Especially if he then pulls, and then he'll pull the emotional guilt tripping as well, because I think Colleen's got people-pleasing tendencies, she said, but it comes out in her behaviour as well, and that she doesn't really like to rock the boat or upset people. So I can fully see him, if she tries to leave, him basically, you know, making out like she is then the source of all his insecurities and problems, because that's the thing with getting into relationships with these men who carry baggage, is that the thing about blame is that it goes to the nearest person. So he might have initially blamed his ex, but then he'll blame the woman, like the next woman that he's with, and then the next woman. And then some stuff came out about Matt's like marriage to his ex, which I thought was quite intrusive actually, so I won't repeat it. But basically that apparently it wasn't the way that it seemed, the way he reported it. So there's that too. So thoughts and prayers with Colleen, honestly, because I think she does deserve better. And I actually feel like her and Cole might have actually been a decent match.
Oh no, I reckon they've just been like just pissheads, just party. It would have just ended in disaster. Like, oh my gosh, like we went to a party and they end up leaving with different people, or like snogging someone else's face off. Like, I just don't think it would be that wouldn't have been a good idea.
Yeah, so like after the altar, Cole starts flirting with Alexa's stepmom.
What?
So he's obviously drunk and like kind of flirt.
Yeah, and Kiss kept making like these inappropriate comments.
Yeah, but once again, like self-defending this part, like I probably would have said it like when I was drunk, like, damn, you don't look like someone's stepmom. Like,
but then at the same time, you could argue, I wonder if that's, you know, I suppose it's not appropriate to say that to someone's stepmom, but if, you know, she's young enough for that to be like, oh, stepmom, like, and she takes pride in her appearance. So a guy appreciating that appearance, a single guy, I mean, whilst it's not appropriate because you know she's married, but like, is that necessarily, I mean, it's just Cole being Cole though, isn't it?
Yeah, I got the impression like he was just in disbelief and like repeating himself and like drunk, right? Like, it's like, wow, you're her stepmom? Wow.
And like, this is a guy whose parents, did he say that they were like deeply, deeply religious? And, you know, so they're probably very traditional. Are they like, did he say they were pastors or something like that? Like, that's completely a different world away from Alexa's family. Like, maybe even financially, like everything you see about Alexa is, because she's like, Alexa and her family, like, they're quite unusual.
Yeah.
Like, they don't seem like the norm in by many different standards. So it's like, and if you're drunk and you're lonely because no one's really talking to you, so alcohol becomes your friend, and then, you know, you start getting the beer talk, then, you know, doesn't mean that it's right, but
I feel like he's getting the Jessica treatment, because Jessica from season 1 was very similar, where like she gets drunk and maybe a little bit flirty, but it wasn't like, I feel like after the show, the same thing happened where the perception of Jessica and Amber switched, where people started to hate Amber and then like Jessica again, because like, it's like, there's just drunk people who are maybe like socially unaware at times, and then like other people react to them with like crazed amount of maliciousness, then like ends up making people on their team. It's weird. I think he's just this season's Messica, where he's getting a bad edit, and then like it's kind of shaking out that over time that people are a little bit more sympathetic, but he's also growing from it, or at least trying to work on himself. Same thing with Jessica.
Well, yeah, so at least they've got that going for them, I guess. But yeah, I just hope that Colleen gets out sooner rather than later, and we're probably going to hear about a divorce announcement this time at some point this year. I wouldn't even be surprised if Brennan and Alexa don't stay together, to be honest.
She must have a baby.
Did anyone stay together from the last season? I don't think so. I think all the couples from the last season, season 2, were divorced now.
Yeah, all the couples that were married or divorced, and then
there's only one from season 1 who were still together, I think.
No, there's 2 because Amber and Barnett are still together, and so are Lauren and Cameron. So there's from season 1, 2 of the couples are still together.
That's a low success rate. Very low success rate.
Because I think again, they changed the format like season 2 and then like tried to rush people through the pods.
Yeah, they shortened it, didn't they? Yeah.
Yeah. There was barely any like pod footage this season versus like the first season. Like the one thing that was kind of confusing and like you get whiplash is like figuring out why these people like each other. And I think that was even the title of our episode. Like I can't figure out why these people like each other because they didn't build the narrative as well as like the first season where you could see them interacting and start to like form an emotional connection. This one, it just seems these people just don't want to be kicked off. So they're just pairing up.
Yeah. But I guess on to the crown of this episode, and that is SK and Raven. I do feel like I need to strike off my previous comments about SK from the record, by the way.
What were the signs, Savannah? What were the signs? So I saw on the Love is Blind subreddit, like some Nigerian Reddit users that were like, well, I could tell he was kind of shifty, but I didn't want to say anything. I was kind of blindsided. I have a few things I think were tells, but like as an American, I thought he was just a little bit like of a Nigerian nerd. So I thought it was just social awkwardness, but now I'm realizing it's shiftiness. It's like disingenuousness.
Yeah. So I'd say the first red flag that Lara and I discussed was the fact his dad was polygamous. I mean, I know obviously sins of the father, but that's a real thing in Nigerian culture. And it's not something that specifically talking about Nigerian culture because he's from Nigeria, but it's not something to easily dismiss if a guy or a Nigerian guy tells you that his dad was polygamous.
No, I just feel like, and I have experience of dating, men whose, families all came from polygamous homes. I just can never shake off the fact that actually, you're a decent guy. I like you, you like me. But when things get tough, I just think you'll just do what you know, which is find someone else. Like, because you haven't been exposed to like conflict resolution. You haven't exposed, and you've been brought up in an environment where women are disposable. Like, well, yeah, things didn't work out, so I'm just going to date the next woman, or I want that woman and this woman and this woman, and you will all stay in this house, or you'll all be in my life, and I'll be, and I will tell you when you get to access parts of me. Like, I just can never trust that. I
wondered about that because I thought it seemed to me like first, and he was talking about like his culture and how he wanted to he didn't want to follow in his father's footsteps, etc. It seems like he just doesn't want the financial obligation.
They all say that.
Well, I was going to say, it seems like he wants like the best of both worlds. He wants a polygamous, polyamorous relationship style while not having to financially support all those women like his father probably did, right? Because then like he wants all the fun and no legal obligations.
I mean, I thought that was SK all over. I mean, I was just like waiting. I have to say, when I first watched the first 10 episodes, I was like, and I could see this guy, I was like, oh, please don't be another one of those. And I thought, yeah, he presented himself quite well. I mean, I thought he was, he kind of like kissing ass to Raven. Like, he didn't show any didn't come across as he had any bite to him. But he made some quite like statements that I thought were a bit odd. So at the beginning, he talks about, the very first episode, he almost got quite frustrated. And it was the first time I saw like almost like a, glint of like, anger in him, where he was talking about going on dating apps. And essentially he implied that, it only brings up essentially black women. Like he didn't want to really date. He didn't just want that.
Right. It's like people judge me because of my race and they don't. I'm like,
yeah. And on Tinder apps. And it's like, but then he made this big thing about, oh, I want a woman to respect my culture. And like, on the one hand, it was great that, you're wearing your cloth, like you're wearing your Nigerian like attire and all this stuff. But hang on. So essentially what it sounds like you want is like you want a white American who's going to understand your Nigerian culture. Bro, that doesn't really exist. Like, why? It just like, and I suppose Raven, he didn't know that Raven, I don't know, maybe he probably didn't know that Raven was what she was, but even still, it's not, you're looking for something that doesn't really exist. So, of course, if you find this person, this non-Black Nigerian or non-Black African or whatever he doesn't want to date, but really he wants, you're just going to try and make that person who you want them to be. So that is going to include like coercive and controlling behavior, because you want someone who doesn't understand you to understand you in a way that it's not natural for them at all. Like when you could just date someone who gets your culture, but you don't want to do that. I thought that was very odd.
Yeah, he doesn't want to do that. So I don't know if we did a recap of like exactly what happened with SK and Raven, like for the purposes of discussion. So Raven and SK after the show, they broke up for a little while. And it turns out like SK was seeing some other girl basically the entire time. And then they got back together and got engaged again, like which was televised by the show. And SK during that time was seeing a bunch of different women. Like he was living with Raven at one point and then like flying to Europe with some other women. And one of those women exposed him on TikTok and then said like she was only going to take it down for like $300,000. And then some other women saw the first woman expose SK and they started exposing SK and saying that they were involved in SK and going on dates with SK while he was engaged to Raven. And then Raven at first with the first girl, she says that she believed SK when he said that like they did not date at the same time and that like that girl was just trying to extort him and it wasn't true. So initially on TikTok, she actually defended SK and then said they were going to take legal action and like stand beside him, et cetera, et cetera. But then all these other girls started to come out and then the timelines started to get mismatched. And then she later went on another show, the Nick Vial Files, after the show aired.
Yeah, that was really sad.
And told the whole thing that she was like, that he was cheating on her the whole time. Here's the kicker. Here's what makes me so mad. There's 2 incidents that I was like, the audacity of this dude. Maybe 3. And like to the point where it was scary. So one of them was, she says that she came home, they were living together, and she found underneath the sink in the back, there was like a towel that looked like it had makeup removed, like had mascara and then like foundation and stuff on it. And she asked him about it. And she's like, who the heck's towel is? And it had like hair, had blonde hair in or something like that. And she says that SK looked at her, was silent for like 20 minutes or something, and then was like, oh, I was doing a turmeric mask.
Cooking up the lie.
Yes, he told her I was doing a turmeric mask, and that's why it looks like it has women's makeup on that makeup towel.
You know when they just go silent whilst they're just ready, they're just cooking up the lies.
Yeah, told her a freaking bald-faced lie.
And then she also spoke about like how he would like put her down. And again, I've said this so many times to Lara and on the podcast, it is always the mid to below mid men who have the most
medium ugly,
who have the most to say about women's looks. Like it's always them every single time.
And she's obviously gorgeous. I'm like, is he doing that to neg her, or is because like most of the other women, actually all the other women he cheated on Raven with were white, whereas like Raven is apparently biracial, that it's like he wants someone white, and she's not white enough for him. So then like he's negging everything she does and the way she looks and saying, I don't like the way you look.
And also like that defeats you met her on Love is Blind. Like I feel like there's so many people that just forgot the premise of I know the show has at this point been done, but it's like, I don't understand. It's like when people go all brand new on you, like, why are you going all brand new? You know that she's a yoga instructor. You know that she's quite an attractive lady. You know that she wears makeup. Why are you suddenly telling her not to do it? Like, why are you trying to do that?
I think he's just negging her because he's a douchebag. Like, he was just basically trying to bring her self-esteem down a notch because he's manipulative and covertly. He realizes, like, I think it's all him trying to, like, covertly control the women around him. And I wonder if that's just, like, tactics he probably picked up from his dad, because I don't know how you manage a household full of multiple wives, but I have to imagine like you have to kind of like keep them in check in some kind of way, and that's probably the way.
Well, yeah, you develop a cult of personality, don't you? You make everything about you and they all worship you. So, and they're all competing. There's a competition and they're all competing for your time and your resources, and you know.
There's a lot of like infighting as well, and it isn't all like strictly harmonious too. There's a lot of infighting, but just the polygamist just tends to just sit back and just not really do anything about it. These are the open polygamists, by the way. You also have like secret polygamists in Nigeria as well. Yeah.
So before Raven like completely knew everything that happened, SK apparently locked himself in a van with the producers of the show and begged them not to air the engagement scene from After the Altar. because like he knew all his lies.
Oh my god.
Yes, that's what I'm like. He's scary. He crossed over from like kind of a tool bag to like kind of like, this is all like, it looks like he laid the groundwork to be this like kind of manipulative situation from the beginning. So he knew he was going to get caught up in his lies. So he went to the producers and basically like was trying to like for hours, like talk them down from airing After the Altar, and like was trying not to let one of the producers leave. Like they couldn't find him for set. Like he had basically was trying to bully the producer. And they said that there were certain things that like, I guess production thought Raven was in on that like they didn't want to air the engagement After an Altar. And she says no. So like she didn't know any of this kind of thing. So behind the scenes, SK was like covertly trying to clean up his mess, manipulate all these women. You know, he contacted these women who were coming forward and like was trying to tell them like BS timelines. And some of those women like posted their chats back on TikTok again of like SK trying to like beg them to take stuff down and act like the timelines are off and all this kind of stuff, which wasn't true. So he's manipulative. Like he's really manipulative. I think he was negging her. And like, it just is so disappointing. I'm trying to think of like, if I think you were spot on, Laura, where like the beginning where he was like crying because no one wants to date him because he feels like that he's being judged by his culture or his race or whatever, which, okay, fair enough. It's not fun to be like the recipient of racism. Like, but I feel like men rarely like are running away from their culture because it's not feminist enough, you know? Like it's usually because they feel like there's some kind of like perceived benefit in another culture they're not going to get. And I also feel like they don't leave that entitlement anywhere. You know, they don't like get rid of that entitlement, I don't think, of like being in a culture where he probably feels like he has the right to multiple women, never being honest with them, manipulating situations to his benefit, getting his ego stroked, despite being medium ugly. So he's medium ugly, right? Like I feel like he's smack dab medium ugly.
Maybe in the US standards.
I mean, we have plenty of Nigerian people here, and he's not the most handsome Nigerian person I know versus like period. Like
he's just like slap bang, like average, like the definition. Like so average that I suppose it could be so average that I'd be like, no, this is the unattractingly average.
Yeah, medium. Like some like to me, like Nigerian like handsome royalty is like Giannis Antetokounmpo and his brothers. That's like Giannis Antetokounmpo. That Google him if you haven't. The NBA player from the Bucks. I think he is so fine. Like he was Nigerian Greek. Like his family immigrated here.
Okay, so he's half Greek then. Okay.
No. He's full Nigerian. He just his family moved to Greece, so they changed their name to a Greek name.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry, but I like him. But yeah. But okay, but he's handsome, right? Like
Anthony Joshua as well.
Is he full Nigerian?
Yes. He initially was going to compete for Nigeria, then switched to Britain.
Yeah, he's full Nigerian, like 100%.
Anthony Joshua, yeah.
So like Nigerian celebrities. Okay, let's do this. Like, so I can give you like more handsome guys, like who are way more handsome and like.
Yeah, SK's not winning any hottie of the year awards. Like
even by Nigerian standards, like he'd be overlooked.
That's what I was saying. I feel like he's medium ugly by Nigerian standards.
By any standard, he's just not like at all. I mean, not that, you know, even if he was much, much better looking, it doesn't give him any that would make it what he's done okay. But it's always the way, though, isn't it? People who have just got no business, it's almost like, well, yeah, you might warrant a girlfriend, but that's about it. You don't warrant being a douchebag. You're not that good looking.
That's why I think he's the one to watch out for. And I've said this before, that medium ugly men are sometimes the worst because they have a deep-seated resentment towards women because they don't always like inspire initial attraction. So they get by being like really manipulative and negging women. So I feel like even without the like polygamous background, he'd probably be that way just because he's medium ugly. So like that was my point. Like it's often not the really hot guys that you should watch out for. It's like these guys who are super mid because they have a chip on their shoulder with women, which was displayed early on in the show where he was crying about being discriminated against. And so then they want attention. So they try to give women the boyfriend treatment or present themselves like a good guy, etc. And then like they do all this covert stuff to like undermine women and like put them in their place because they're deep-seatedly, I don't even know if it's insecurity so much if it's like, maybe it's insecurity because they want to show off to other guys, but also because they want to like control and manipulate women for their ego purposes because they know, I don't know, I think they resent just not being like attractive.
And it's just all entitlement, isn't it? They've just been told, maybe they're by their mothers or people around them their whole lives, that like, yeah, women are going to come and you're just going to be able to pick and choose. And then they don't realise that they can't pick and choose. It's a competition. You know, it's not a when, it's an if. And just because you decide that, you know, Marilyn Monroe is the only kind of woman you'll go for, like, she has to also want you. And they just take it quite badly that they're not wanted by their desired folk. And often it is these like very average people who just refuse to come down from wherever, like, just find your level,
Just accept your limitations. Yeah. Stay in your lane. Box in your weight class. It's okay. Trying to play in the varsity leagues, but you're JV through and through. You know Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? Like, it's not happening for you.
I need to find this guy.
Okay, I'll spell it Giannis. Giannis, and then Ante. Okay, just put Giannis NBA Bucks. Sorry, I don't know how to spell his last name. It's like really...
And his name was Adetokunbo. Okay, yeah, definite Yoruba. That was his original name. Why did they get rid of the name? I don't get it.
I think maybe just to blend in when they moved to Greek. His family moved to Greece and then they but no, he's like...
Look at those arms.
I know, right? Okay, so I was like, you're not telling me in a world where Giannis Antetokounmpo exists that SK is like handsome. You know what I mean? Like, he's not prime Nigerian beef, right?
Yeah, but Giannis Antetokounmpo is like a genetic anomaly in Lagos. Sorry. He's not like most men in Lagos, let's be real.
He has three brothers, but no, he's three brothers.
Yeah, but I can see it. No, I can see this guy's Nigerian. I can see it.
I can see he's Nigerian, but he doesn't look like your typical Nigerian man.
He just doesn't look like SK, no. And I just think SK has a very typical Nigerian look.
He's got a very traditional look. Yeah, he does.
Like a traditional, like average Nigerian. It's not like a traditional, like good-looking Nigerian look.
Two of his brothers are in the NBA too. So Google Giannis NBA brothers.
Bloody hell.
His brothers are fucking handsome as well.
These are definite. Yeah, these are.
They're like stupid handsome. Like,
imagine having three sons in the NBA.
I know his parents are fucking loaded. What I love about him though is like they grew up super poor. Like he has this whole they used to sell like bootleg watches and stuff. So like he had a movie come out about him and his brothers like growing up poor in Greece and then eventually making it to the NBA. It's actually pretty cute. I'm like, this to me is like prime Nigerian cut beef. I don't like, so when I look at SK, I'm like, nah, it's like secondary market. Like secondary market, like garbage fed pork, maybe. Like,
so savage.
But the thing is as well, I really liked SK's mum, and I wonder, was she in on it as well? I really liked her.
No, I don't think so at all. She's just so pure-hearted. Actually, everything that we've been saying, I feel bad because of the mother, because the mother was actually really sweet.
But how could she not know her son was in a whole relationship? How could she not know?
But a lot of the time, mothers are to do with the reason why their sons end up the way they do. You know, even like, I don't know where her position was in the whole polygamy thing, but, you know, did she choose to stay in it? Did she marry a guy who had like 4 wives, you know?
So he must be wealthy, right? Like he must come from money.
Yeah, but we also need to remember as well, I was speaking to Mum about this, and she was saying how back when... So I was talking to Mum about this, and she was saying how when, you know, women of SK's mum's generation, they often entered into, you know, polygamous arrangements, not necessarily because they wanted to, but to escape from poverty, as that was a route out. So if you had, generally speaking, guys who are polygamous tend to have a bit more money, generally, not always. So they just saw it as a way out. It wasn't really like a love match thing. It was more just, this guy has shown he can take care of a family, so you should go and have a family with him as well because he'll take care of you too, sort of thing. Almost like he's done a test run and it's been okay, so off you go and do the same thing, sort of thing. But that's becoming less popular nowadays in Nigeria, thankfully.
Well, yeah, and the guy often has, but even back then, the guys Yeah, they'd have the money, like, if you were the third, but then the money would finish by the 9th wife and the, 27th kid.
True. And to be fair, they would always have a favoured family. So it wasn't like they treated all their kids equally. There'd be one family that had the money.
Well, I feel like they always went back to the first one because these women would get progressively younger. And at some point, if you're like a 64-year-old and you've got like a, 28-year-old as a wife, you're just going to think differently. Like, so they always go back to the first one. It's just a shit show. All the children end up traumatized in some way. They're all encouraged not to like each other. And then someone dies and they all share a space and they're like, oh, actually, you're all right. But they've just been coached by the mothers not to like each other. I think it's not even organized. And there are a few, I have heard of stories where like the polygamy is done and it's very, very organized and it brings an order to what is otherwise typically very chaotic and traumatic. But I just, like, most men don't don't follow that. And even then you have to kind of raise your children, or your first wife also has to be willing to follow that order. So it's just a bad idea.
So we have that in the United States, and it's called being an irresponsible fuckboy that doesn't use condoms. And so there's guys out here in the States that have like 9, 10, 11 kids by like 4 or 5 different women, 6, 7, 8 different women. And then when the guy dies, the people are fighting over their state. Because that happened to like James Brown, DMX when they died.
Yeah, it did. Is it Ray Charles as well?
I don't know how many children Ray Charles has, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
He had 12 kids. Yeah, I guess he did too. Yeah, Ray Charles too. He had 12 children. So yeah, so we have like very similar thing, except there's no legal obligation outside of child support. But even then, like the child support well can dry up. There's a really famous like episode. Do you guys have like a Yanla Fix My Life in the UK?
No, but you can watch it. We've watched.
You've heard of it?
Yeah, we've heard of it, definitely.
So there's like an episode with like a guy that had 36 kids. And this is like a poor kid guy. And she made him hold like 36 baby dolls to represent each of his children he wasn't taking care of. But like, there's just like, due to poverty, lack of education, not a lot of sex education or access to contraception, etc. Like, there was a time where these guys are just like sperminating people.
Oh my God. And
very similar things. So it's a weird thing because sometimes that de facto happens in the U.S.
Nick Cannon's.
Oh, God. Okay. Yeah. Nick Cannon. I'm just kind of embarrassed of, like, American men. Like, there's Elon Musk. Elon Musk and Jack Nicholson has, like, 12 kids, too.
Hang on. Elon Musk has more than one kid.
Oh, my God. He has a ton of kids. He has, like, kids by each of his wives and girlfriends. He had random twins, like, 2 years ago.
I thought that one was the one with the algebra name. That was it.
That was with Grimes. No.
Oh, no. That was his youngest, like, was his like youngest one. He's got a child who doesn't speak to him anymore because they're trans and they've like publicly like cut him off. So he's got like 10 kids.
Elon Musk has got 10 kids. Who I just mentioned someone else who had like a bunch of kids. It wasn't Nick Cannon, but someone else like.
DMX had a bajillion kids as well.
Yeah, he had 17 kids.
He had 17?
He had something like 17, yeah.
Yeah, he has a lot, like teens, like mid-late teens.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he had like 17 kids. And I remember thinking, like, because it came out recently that he was in love with Aaliyah, and I'm just like, by then he'd had like 10 kids and she was barely 20. Like, why would she want you and your...
raggedy dick? Yeah.
And your little village.
Raggedy disease dick.
I kind of feel like Aaliyah, like, it feels like every guy that came across Aaliyah just was in love with her, and it was so inappropriate because they were all like 10 plus years older than her.
Agreed.
And they came into contact with her when she was a teenager and when she was underage. Like, everyone has cancelled and, you know, everyone has like, R. Kelly's exactly where he needs to be. Like, whatever you think of him and his music or whatever. However, like, there were men of his similar age, so like Timbaland and DMX, all these people, Jay-Z.
Who were circling.
Who were like literally circling like vultures. It was like a rush to get her. Who's going to get her? And it was Dame Dash that got her. Like, and it's just, this is really not okay. Like, it's not okay. And it's just, okay, yeah. I digress.
Music industry's predatory. It's crappy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so don't be having 50, 11 kids. Moral of the story.
No.
Men are trash.
And don't get with a guy who has 50, 11 kids either.
And it sounds horrible because for every guy, I think that I don't know how many men, there'll be one guy who's like, I'm never going to do it, and actually never does it, right? But I just kind of feel there needs to be more of a social consequence that women can collectively bestow on men who make poor choices to get men to stop doing things. So like, if you knew as a man that if I go and have, 15 children by 9 different women, it's actually going to lower the chances that my sons are going to get partnered because they'll run away, because women will run away from them. Like, maybe that might start to change the behavior. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it probably won't, but I don't know. I just feel like that's what we can do.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like there's got to be more consequences. It's just like, that's part of the work of FTS, enforcing consequences, changing narratives.
And they're not going to be pretty, and it means that...
Empowering lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, Love is Blind was another disappointing season to wrap up. I think they've got I think there's a UK one, I want to say, coming out soon.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be your side of the pond.
To be fair, that generally speaking, though, reality TV shows in the UK, they're not built the same as the US ones in that there's a lot less drama. It's a different kind of drama, but it tends to be a lot more like low key. So if you're looking for like the explosive fights and stuff, it doesn't really happen on British TV because we just don't really respond to that.
No. I mean, it might on something like that. It depends on what type of person they attract on the show.
Yeah,
but it's not as sensationalized as like the US one.
It isn't as sensationalized. Like, if you think of like Kitchen Nightmares with Gordon Ramsay and he's like cussing and swearing, if you watch the UK version, he's totally different. Like, he doesn't shout. He doesn't shout at all.
He doesn't shout at all.
For some reason, British people coming to curse out Americans is a very popular genre here in the States.
Yes, you guys seem to love it.
Because Nanny 911, same thing. Like, send Brits over to curse out random Americans. Gold, reality TV gold. Like,
yes. I mean, so even shows like The Apprentice with like Donald Trump and like Lord Alan Sugar, even though there is drama in the UK one, it's totally different.
It's not like that. And like, is it Shark Tank?
It isn't the same.
That you guys call Dragon's Den? Yeah, like Dragon's Den is very serious. It's very serious business. There's none of this sort of, it's not like reality TV.
And the people on the UK show, like, they're like proper business people in that. It seems like in the US, it's more like they were business people, but then they morphed into reality TV show stars. But whereas in the UK version, they remain business people. Like, some of them have no social skills still. Like, Duncan Bannatyne's been cancelled several times for telling people to fuck off on social media like a 14-year-old. Like, they're just not like celebrities in that sense. So it'll be interesting to see what the Love is Blind. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the Love is Blind UK version is like and to do a comparison between the two.
It'd be uglier dudes for sure, apparently.
Oh yeah, we went over this. Didn't we? How like British men are just like, compared to American men on the equivalent shows, it's like an American guy might be like a 9. The British equivalent is like a 5 or a 6.
God, Savannah.
Yeah, bad Bill. All right, so stay tuned for that. That's our show. Check us out on the website if you want to discuss this episode on the femaledatingstrategy.com, as well as our weekly bonus content and our Discord and merchandise on our Patreon, patreon.com/the female dating strategy. Also follow us on Twitter @femdatstrat and follow us on Instagram @_the female dating strategy. Thanks for listening, Queens, and for all you discount aftermarket garbage fed pork scroats. Die mad. See y'all next week.
See you next week.